Hello again, everybody. Thanks again for joining me for another Allan Holdsworth lesson video. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite Allan Holdsworth songs, Above and Below, and I have a good feeling that it's probably one of his favorites as well. It's a song that he actually plays very frequently, and I feel like if you had asked him to play something on guitar for you, he would probably play this. He played it sometimes for the clinics that he was doing, or there was one video I saw, he was doing a television show, an interview, and he ended up playing the song. And I think he was very proud of it, especially that it doesn't have a solo to it, so to him I think the piece itself has a very strong connection to him. Also, I feel that the name of the song, Above and Below, has a very almost, I might be just me thinking about this, a very almost somber sort of quality to it. I'm thinking about, you know, visiting someone's grave and they're above and below. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but I think the song is beautiful. So it's actually relatively simple. There's a lot of repeating in there, and there's not a lot of crazy chords in it except for, I think, one that I'll show an alternate way of playing it. I mean, you're going to have normal Allan weirdness here and there, but nothing that's really very stretchy. So anyway, without further ado, Above and Below. So Allan would play this very frequently live, and sometimes he would just change it around a little bit. Sometimes the performance would just be part of a swell section, or sometimes he'd play the first half as a swell section, then go into it with the full band. I'll probably be talking about it more like the album version, even though they're really not that much different from any live performances of it. So the first part is a little bit of free improv in D major. Allan sort of treats this as a G major with a sharp 11. But of course, with any Allan tune, you're not necessarily thinking of the chord, you're thinking of the scale that it belongs to. So there's a lot of improvisation here in terms of the melody and stuff. So really the heart of the song could be this G major add 9, but also with the C sharp. And, you know, the F sharp on the top, or the C sharp here with the open D. Stuff like this. So it could be whatever you feel like it, but that's really the heart of it. And a lot of times when he's doing the swell section, that part doesn't really happen. To him, like the part of the song where it starts is the next chord. So after this, the next chord is this one. Also, there's a lot of open chords in this song. I believe I read an interview where Allan said he was influenced, I think, by John Scofield. This is not a ripoff of any of his tunes, just the idea. And I believe he said he doesn't really write a lot of stuff with open strings in it. And I think this song was one of his first into trying to write a song with more open strings in it. And here you go with that next chord. You see this kind of strange one. I think of this as a A flat major third, the sharp 11, and the 9. So it's an A flat major add 9 add sharp 11. And then you take that same shape and now you move it down a half step to G. And now that D stays the same, so now you have a G major with an A, so G major add 9. Then this one, I think Allan's really thinking this as not a first inversion D major, but as an F sharp minor, sharp 5. Then you add the minor third in there. And then that A is being pinned up here. So now you're playing a B flat major 7 without the third in it. But you're using these 3 fingers because you're going to be using your first finger to sort of bar here for the next few chords. Because then you add the 9 with your first finger. And you take that whole shape and you move it up to D. And then you play it there. Actually, maybe it's more like a sus2, maybe D major 7 sus2. That's probably a better way of thinking of it. So let's say B flat major 7 sus2 to D major 7 sus2 to C major 7 sus2. But now you play the major 7 on the high E string. and then you add the sharp 11 because you're barring that whole 7th fret. Now here's the first really tricky chord of the song. It's the same as that that A flat major, add 9, add sharp 11, but now you're playing on C sharp, so now you have to use your first finger to bar. Well, not really bar, but just to play on the 5th fret here. And this chord comes to play later in the song. So it's now C sharp, and major, add 9, add sharp 11. You can also play this chord open by playing it over here, which is actually a lot easier and makes sense actually going to the next part, but Allan plays it here. Because now you have a C minor with an add 11, you have a C minor triad right here, and then you have the 11 right there, and you're also playing the 5th on the high E string. And then you take that shape and you move it to D major, but now you add the 9 there, E, E, D, G, F sharp. Really beautiful voicing. Alright, here comes a little weird section. Now this is a really cool kind of E minor add 9 voicing, I think of it as. You have sort of like an E sus2 with the G in the bass here, but to me that means E minor add 9. And then here's one of your other weird chords. I think I talked about this chord in my top 10 most difficult Allan chords. You have this, which at first I wasn't quite sure what this is, but we have an E, a G sharp, a D sharp, which to me is already a major 7, and then an F sharp on the bottom, so I would think of this as an E major 9. So even though to me this doesn't, I don't hear minor go into major, I think that's what makes the most sense for this. Of course, all these chords are interpretive, you can call it whatever you want. This is just how I see it, and I like to think of the simplest name for the chord because it makes it easier for me to use, or even just think about in a moment's notice. So E minor add 9 to E major 9 with this really weird voicing. You can see that I'm really using the side of my fingers again, not trying to play it straight out. You can, but it's easier if you twist it. Then a really simple C major 7 add C major 7 sharp 11. And Allan likes to take the sharp 11 and sometimes move it to G. And then the next chord is a flat major 7 sharp 5, or a C major with an A flat in the bass. And now the next chord is a little tricky. This one I don't think is too bad. You see Allan use this one a lot. I would think of this chord as a B flat major 7, but in context of the song, I really hear it as a G minor 9. Because if you think of it as G minor, you have a flat 7, and you have the 9, and then the flat 3, and the 5th. So and then you could play the G on top here, but that's how I hear it. Sometimes Allan does something weird, and he'll actually play an A with his middle finger on the low E string. So we got this so far. I'll play it. Then right here goes to a B flat minor triad, but you're playing the open B strings, which is the flat 9. So this is a B flat minor add flat 9. And especially in the context that it's used, you can definitely hear. And then moves back to the G major add 9. Really great voice leading there. Here it repeats almost the same way. F sharp minor 7, sharp 5. But now you take that voicing and you move it up to B. So B minor 7, sharp 5. And then this really cool E minor add 9 voicing. B, E, F sharp, and G. Now sometimes Allan will actually play a little harmonic on the G, or just play a G note here. And you have a B minor triad in first inversion, but it really to me sounds like an upper structure G major 7 because of where it's coming from. And then it moves to a C major 7, but now you take the major 7 and you move it to the 6. So right here it sounds like a C major 7 going to A minor. So that little part I'll play again. I'll start from here. Now you have a B flat minor triad with the sharp 11. And now sometimes Al will actually play this. He sort of moves that shape down but bars on the first string, so you have an F sharp major triad up here with a D in the bass, which is a D major 7 sharp 5. And then you have that D major 9 voicing again with the really weird kind of stretch. And then an A major 7 with the sharp 11, and then F sharp major 7 sharp 5, just like the previous part, just a whole step down. But now what happens is you're sort of pinning this F sharp, and you're using the triad up here, and you're moving it up to C sharp. So Allan plays it like this with his pinky and his first finger, which allows him to slide, but to me that's really tricky. So I sort of cheat and go, and now I would think of this as an F sharp major 7 sus2, C sharp up here with an F sharp in the bass, and then just a simple A major. Sometimes you can add the 6 on top, so A major 6, or F sharp minor 7, and then back to G major and 9. That's really the gist of it, and then I'll talk about the middle section and then how everything repeats in the next part. So here's the middle section of the song. This part only happens once, and then it repeats back to what I had just played with some slight alterations. So the first chord is a really smart D minor major 11 chord, which is very strange, but you have a D minor major chord up here, but you use your first finger to bar, and you're playing a G up here. And then you move that shape down here to a B major 7 with the sharp 11. This kind of chord and this section is very similar to Letters of Marque, which I had talked about in an earlier video. Has the same sort of voicings. Whoops. It just happens here. But now instead of playing a minor 7, you're playing a minor major 7, because you're moving this minor 7 to the major 7. To B major 7, sharp 11. Now that gets moved up a whole step, so now you go to E minor major 11, C sharp major 7, sharp 11. Move that a half step up, and now you're at F major minor major 7 sharp 11 to D major 7 sharp 11. Sometimes you can add the D sharp in there, which is very kind of strange when you think about it in relation to this, but it works. And then a D minor 7 with the 11 in there because you have the G. And then finally, this A flat 6/9, or you can think of it as an F sharp minor with an add 11, because this to me right here is an F minor triad that you see Allan use a lot, and you're playing a B flat there. So that section sounds like this. And then back to G major add 9. So now this whole section repeats identically except for a couple little places, so I'm just going to run through it and mention where it's different. Everything's still the same. All the same. Same. This is where it starts to change. After this B minor 7 sharp 5, instead of going to E minor add 9, Allan goes up here and sort of plays an E minor 11, or sometimes he'll just do the harmonics, and then hammer up from a G to an A, and then everything else is the same. what I did before, just with that one little extra part. But now, instead of doing the F sharp major 7 sus2, you now go into the ending section. So after that chord, C minor with the add 11, like before, D major, add 11. Now this chord is really what's tricky. Now before, how I said that thinking of this chord is like a add 9, add sharp 11, which it is, Allan plays an A. Now what makes that so strange is that A is the sharp 5 of C sharp, not the perfect 5th or the flat 6. So this chord actually belongs to melodic minor. It's a Lydian augmented chord. Now the easier way that you can play that is playing that chord before like this, using the open G string, and then your pinky's right there for A. But now what makes it tricky is then you have to jump all the way back up for the next chord, which is this. You kind of have a D major here with the 9, and then you have your major 3rd, and then your 13 up here. So you can sort of think of this as like a major with an add 9, add 13. Or you can think of it as belonging to B minor, B being the root up here, and you've got a B minor 11. Because you have the flat B, you have your 5th, your major minor 3rd, flat 7, and then your 11 here. Whatever makes sense to you. Now the next chord is also a little different. You can either play, which I think on the record Allan plays a C6 over 9, also with the major 7, with the B there, but you can also play an open E string, or sometimes use your pinky to play the D up here, or you can even play the D string open and play a C major add 9 open here, and add the D on top. Once again, it's about the key that it belongs to, not the actual chord, so there's a lot of slight variation if you know what notes are available that you could play. So if you play this major add 9 shape with the open D string, you can take that chord and move it a half step down, and then you have a B minor, you have B, D, and F sharp here, 9, and then you have an E with the 11. You take that same shape and move it down to G major add 9. And of course this is now once again like G Lydian, thinking of it with the sharp 11 or the major 7, however you feel like you want to play it. This part is a little bit freer. I think that's how it's played on the record. And it goes back up to that B minor add 9. And now this. Now this is kind of weird, because what would you consider this to belong to? This is almost like a sus4, but with this in here. This whole section, the next few chords, actually is sort of playing like a D sus4 diatonic up the neck. And for me, the best way of thinking of it is part of this kind of chord. So let's say we have, this would be like a D major with the add 11, and this would be C sharp diminished with the 11 in there. Oops, sorry. B minor with an 11, A major with the 11, and then G major with an add sharp 11. So, oops, screwing up here. Allan uses this very frequently, so it's like playing that shape but without the low E string. So this whole part is diatonic to D major. So I would think of this as like a D major at 11, C sharp diminished with the add 11, B minor at 11, A major with the add 11, and the G major with an add sharp 11. Once again, I'm not putting in the 3rd in any of those chords, which would be on the bass. It's just how he's thinking of it with just those triads in there. All belongs to D major. And then the final little part of it, this is so genius. This is the same voicing as before, as that weird major 9, like this, but now it's played on the higher strings. I definitely talked about this in the video, because this chord also appears in Bo Peep. Allan, what you do is here you play this 6 here in G, and you move this up to A, and then you fill in the 6 here with D major. So you have a built-in 5-to-1. Genius. And if you play all those notes together, it's a D major at 9. But the way that Allan plays it makes it sound like it's a 5-to-1, A to D. So that's I love that. That's brilliant. 4, 5, 1. And then and that's really the end of the song. But if you sometimes Allan adds this at the end. He plays a little G major triad, F major triad, E flat, C, B flat. Little major second interval here between F and a minor second interval. I'm sorry, between E and F. Back to B flat major. Do the same thing a whole step up. I mean an octave up. Then you go down to an octave lower, and then instead of playing B flat major, Allan plays this instead, which is much harder. I actually find it easier to play like this, using my pinky to bar. It's really a B flat with the 9 and the sharp 11, or the sus2 and the 11, but then you're adding in the 5th, the F here. Easier way to play that is you could just do that up here. Whoops, sorry. Instead of trying to like play this. This chord also, you see this chord in letters of mark and some other things. It's also in where is one. So anyway, that's Above and Below, one of my absolute favorite Allan pieces. Relatively simple, and it's very understated. Just that's what it is. There's no need for a solo in it, so it's gorgeous. I think for my next videos, I decided I'm going to go old school because there's a couple of songs that I felt all of a sudden I got the urge to want to, I guess, do a lesson for. So I'll do that in the next few weeks. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Got any questions, comments? Let me know. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you soon.